I met a gypsy.
The privateer conversation, maybe I was going to touch on that at some point. But what was your take on my rant that I went on?
I think that you now realize that in this industry, you need to bring a lot of tear-offs.
Yes. Yeah, that was probably like my first big public.
It was your turn in the barrel.
Yeah. Which I'm completely fine
for me,
with.
it's last Thursday.
Yeah,
it happens.
Yeah.
No, I actually disagree with you. I was a privateer. I knew early on that I was not going to go far. I was willing to go as far as I could because I wanted the adventure. I wanted the bona fides to, I wanted to line up for a national. I wanted to get a national number. I wanted to get my pro card. I was better as a 14-year-old than I was as a 16-year-old. And as an 18-year-old racing with Ron Lachine,
yeah, it's different.
I beat him in a couple motos in the 81 Youth Nationals. By 83, he was winning supercrosses. I was still a local expert in West Virginia.
Yeah.
And the writing was on the wall. And it was time to make some decisions. And I went to college. But I also kept racing. And I paid my own way. And I got a little bit of support from KTM. I got to see the world. I got to race in Europe. I'm still friends with Heinz Kinnegadner, having lined up with him at a hard cross in Vienna. And we still talk about it every time we see each other.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but that's one of my favorite memories of my life. And I didn't win. I didn't make a great deal of money. I paid for it, but I was a part of it. And not everyone who races stock cars ends up in NASCAR. They have a different kind of system we do, but there are privateers all over that sport.
Yeah.
And in our sport, it's just different in that there's real high enthusiasm and low cost of entry to become a dirt bike racer. And that goes all the way up through the pro level. Yes, it gets pricey, but the rewards are there if you're really good. But I don't want to be the guy that says you're not good enough. We only want 20 people here because there are only 20 people showed up with good support.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And in fact, in the Pro Motocross Series, we have to turn people away every weekend.
Well, you couldn't run motocross without privateers.
Right.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. And I don't think you could with Supercross either, because back in the day, when there really was 20 factory riders in the 250 class, there were still privateers. And the racing got boring. They tried having semi heat races, last chance qualifiers, 2 main events, and they finally said, you know what we need is another class. And that was the 125 class. It was also my dad's idea, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's why it's called the Dave Coombs Senior
Memorial
Shootout.
Yeah,
I'm very, very thankful to Feld that they still call it that. Kenneth Feld didn't know my dad. I don't think that anyone involved in Supercross on a day-to-day level really knew my dad, but they still honor him, which is super cool.
Yeah, that is super cool.
Yeah. But it takes privateers, and it will always take privateers, and I do my best to help them as best I can, because I was one of them, and I get it. I know it. And I'm not going to throw you under the bus, other than to say I disagree, and you should get some more tear-offs.
No. I appreciate your perspective. It was funny. So first of all, I don't edit our content anymore. That's been done for years. I also don't post my content. So we have a team in Australia that's worked for us for years. And I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I wonder what's on YouTube today from Gypsy Tales. And I just see this what I paid those boys to do, they did. And I got up and I was like, fuck. I completely forgot that I said it. I was just not I think the way that obviously there's the people on the internet that take the clips and they take the things out of context. Yeah. But that was me being theatrical in a sense and hyperbolic, because from my perspective, I'm a guy that I deal with a bunch of different worlds and a bunch of different athletes, but motocross and supercross, that's my shit. That's my whole passion. It's what I've done my whole life. And I could do this in another sport and it would be bigger, and you know what I mean? Like there's probably more I could do with what I do that would be in a different place that would be more profitable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I love this shit. And so I'm the guy that's like thinking about ideas, and I'm around these different things and I'm around these different places, and I'm like, man, I feel like there's some things we could do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always coming at it from that angle, and I'm always kind of bringing new ideas, and which I think are doable, knowing some of the things behind the scenes. You know, like I'm not completely ignorant. I'm not ignorant to what people think at the top of the sport. I'm not ignorant to some of the, you know, the things that go on and, you know, that other people might not see. So I guess my perspective's always like a mix of those things. And the one thing that I always get, dude, in my DMs, anytime I say anything that's a remotely good idea, but what about the privateers, bro? What about the privateers, bro? And the amount of times that I get that, and Clinton Fowler, what about the privateer, bro'd me? And I was like, you know what? Fuck the privateer. I'm fucking done. And it was one of those that, you know what I mean? So that was like the way that it came across, you know, and then you're doing a show, it's entertaining, we're being hyperbolic. But I do, and it started a conversation that there was never this much, you know, talk around that, and a lot of people weighing in. I got a lot of phone calls from people. I got a lot of hate online. Like I saw a lot of it, you know, and I'm completely cool with all of it. But I think motocross cannot exist without privateers. Doesn't need to be changed at all. Like I just don't think that there's an issue there. My issue, and like really in terms of like just having an actual like conversation about it and not being silly and carrying on. But it's like, how many guys would enter a supercross race? 120, 140, you know, plus guys. And we have 22 in the 250 main event and 22 in the 450 main event. And it's basically the same guys, right? You might be picking from a pool of 30, but we have 130, 140 every weekend. And then there's all these like upstream problems, which people don't necessarily attribute to privateers because they're this cherished part of the sport. But it's like the tracks are fucked. Oh, we don't have enough time to maintain the tracks. And then you get it's too expensive. What about the privateers? And then you get the factory guy like a Jet Lawrence or a Chase Sexton or the Eli Tomac, like the big name guys that do sell the tickets, right? So you have those guys coming to the stadium at 7:30 and leaving at midnight and really not doing much while they're there, right? So they do a free practice, 2 qualies, and then they go into their night show. So they're there for like 14 hours to make that happen. And then that creates its own downstream issues in terms of what the riders want to do, how the riders feel about the events, So my whole thing, it's not, I said fuck the privateers as like a umbrella statement. But what I'm really trying to get at is there's 150, 160, however many guys that just pay to go and race, and they've got to go through all the process of practicing and all that. And it's the same pool of dudes that we're taking from each weekend. I think there's a way to really trim the fat. So I'm not saying only a factory rider can get in there. Like that's not the point, but I'm saying we're spending the majority. You think about Race Day Live, you think about all this time that is taken up through the schedule by guys that will never make a main event. And I understand that it's cool and it's like, that should be what pro motocross is for, in my opinion. But there's guys, like, I started looking into some numbers just because I said all that like pretty off base and off the cuff, right? But you start looking into it. There's guys that have gone 153 supercross entries, never made a main. 160, 130. And it's just like 14 there was one guy, 14 seconds a lap qualifying pace off RJ Hampshire in the 250 class. And it's like, in no other professional world would it be okay for a rider to be sharing the same track as someone to be 14 seconds a lap slower on a 50-second lap. So that is kind of my argument.
Well, first of all, I'm just here for the jujitsu talk. Again, I disagree. But I will say that if someone's 14 seconds slower, there's obviously a reason. And I know that the AMA would look out for that guy, and they would, if someone was truly an obstacle or a danger. And Supercross doesn't take as many riders as you think. I think that sometimes it's usually close to 40 a class. It's just hard to turn people away when this is the only game in town. But they don't just let anybody sign up. Anybody to even get around a Supercross track, you got to be pretty good on a dirt bike.
That's not my issue. Yeah. I definitely, there's guys that are very good at racing dirt bikes, much better than me and much better than I'll ever be. So that's definitely not my issue.
Yeah. So I see your points, and I see your points about what it means to the schedule, what it means to the tracks, what it might mean to a superstar who might get burned out on the lifestyle and whatnot. But I don't know that you're going to get Jet Lawrence to ride too much more on a given Saturday.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.